Run your hand along the wall of this cabin. Pre-cut pine, locked together like a puzzle, no nails holding the corners. 2 men stood it up over a single weekend. It cost less than a used car, and the man who owns it does not owe $1 to a bank. There is no mortgage on this building. There never will be. After my last video, dozens of you wrote me the same thing. You said, Amos, I am past 60 and I am still making a house payment and I will be making it the year I turn 90. You asked if there was another way, so I went looking. Through the old Amish ways, through the kit catalogs, through the little buildings my own people deliver down the road on a flatbed trailer, finished, with the curtains already hung. What I found is 14 of them. 14 cabins you can set up in a weekend, pay for in cash, and own free and clear. And before this video is over, I am going to show you the one rule the banks and the building code men do not want you to understand. The rule that quietly decided you would rent your whole life instead of own. Stay with me. Here is the number that should make you angry. On a 30-year mortgage, you do not buy one house. You buy 2, sometimes 3. Borrow $200,000 at the rates most folks pay, and by the time the bank hands you the deed, you have given them more than $400,000. The house cost half of what you paid. The rest was rent on money. The Amish do not do this. We have never done this. When a young couple needs a home, the community raises it, sometimes between sunup and supper, and that couple owns it the morning the last peg is driven. No payment. No interest, no deed sitting in a vault 3 counties over with another man's name on it. Now you cannot call up 40 neighbors and raise a barn this Saturday. I understand that, but you can do the next best thing. You can buy the structure already cut, already drawn, already engineered and stand it up with your own 2 hands. That is all a kit cabin is. A house that comes in pieces with the hard thinking already done. And that is where our list begins. Number 1, the Nordic log cabin. This is the one in front of you. It comes from the cold countries, Finland and Sweden and Estonia, where they have been building this way for centuries. Thick planks of pine, milled with a tongue on the top edge and a groove on the bottom, and notched at the corners so they lock together like the fingers of 2 folded hands. You do not frame a wall and then cover it. The wall is solid wood, and it is the inside and the outside both. A kit like this lands on a pallet at your door. The smallest ones, a garden room or a bunk cabin, 2 people can stand up in a weekend with a rubber mallet and a ladder. No special tools. The walls hold themselves up by their own weight and their own joinery. The bigger ones, a real 1-room cabin with a loft, take a long weekend and a 3rd set of hands. The price runs from about $5,000 for a small one to $20,000 for a large. Cash, not a payment book. Number 2, the A-frame. Look at the shape of a letter A and you already understand it. 2 long walls that are also the roof, leaning together at the peak, meeting the ground on either side. There is genius in that simplicity. The same timber does 2 jobs, so there is less to buy, less to cut, and less to lift. Snow slides right off the steep sides instead of sitting and crushing the roof, which is why you see this shape all through the mountains. An A-frame kit comes as a set of pre-cut rafters and panels, numbered, with a drawing that shows which goes where. A small one is a famous weekend project. People put them up in 2 and 3 days with friends and a case of cold drinks. You can buy a bare-bones A-frame shell kit for under $10,000, and a comfortable cabin version for $15 to $30. The shape does half the work for you. Number 3, the Amish cabin. Now I will tell you about my own people. All over Pennsylvania and Ohio and Indiana, Amish and Mennonite builders make small cabins in what they call cabin sheds, and they build them the old way by hand in a shop. You do not assemble this one at all. They build it complete. Walls, roof, windows, a little porch, sometimes a loft inside. Then they load it whole onto a trailer, drive it to your land, and set it down on blocks with a winch and a careful hand. It arrives in a day. You spend the weekend putting your things inside. A small Amish cabin, finished, can run from around $6,000 for a plain shell to $25,000 or $30,000 for one you could move into that night. No bank touched it. No interest. Built by men who have never owed money on a building in their lives. Number 4. The yurt. This is the oldest one on the list by far. The herding people of the high plains of Asia, the Mongols, have lived in the yurt for more than 1,000 years. A round lattice wall of wood that folds like an accordion, a ring of rafters meeting a wooden crown at the top, and a heavy weatherproof cover stretched over the whole thing. It is round because the wind cannot get a grip on a circle. A modern yurt comes from the maker as a kit of that lattice, the rafters, the crown, and the cover. 2 or 3 people raise a small one in a single day, a large one a weekend. They are not toys. A good modern yurt has a real insulated cover and can take snow and wind that would frighten you. Prices run from about $6,000 for a small one to $15,000 or $20,000 for a large insulated model. 1,000 years of people cannot all be wrong. Number 5. The geodesic dome. This one looks like it came from the future, but the math is old and the idea is simple. You take a great many short, straight struts and bolt them together at hubs into triangles, and the triangles wrap into a ball. A triangle is the one shape that cannot be pushed out of square. So a dome made of triangles is, pound for pound, one of the strongest shapes a man can build. It carries snow and wind by spreading the load all through itself instead of dumping it on a few posts. A dome kit is a stack of struts cut to length and a bag of hubs and bolts, with a chart that tells you the order. It goes up fast because every piece is small enough for one person to carry. A weekend with a few helpers raises the frame. You can find a small dome frame kit for a few $1,000s and a finished dome cabin for $15,000 and up. Strong, cheap, and quick. The future from a long time ago. Number 6. The Quonset. During the war, the Navy needed shelter they could ship flat and throw up fast, anywhere in the world, by men who were not builders. So they made a building out of curved steel sheets bolted into arches. Half a pipe, sitting on the ground. They called it the Quonset hut, and they put up tens of thousands of them. You can still buy the same idea today as a kit of arch panels and bolts. There is no frame and no roof as separate things. The arch is the wall and the roof together, one curve of steel. A small one bolts together over a weekend with a crew and a ladder. The steel does not burn, does not rot, and does not feed termites. A bare arch kit for a small cabin can be found in the $8,000 to $15,000 range. It is not fancy. It is a shape the wind and the snow simply slide over. Cheap, tough, and quick, the same reasons the Navy chose it. Number 7. The panel cabin. Here is a modern one that the old builders would have loved. A structural insulated panel, what the trade calls a SIP, is a thick slab of rigid foam glued tight between 2 sheets of board. That sandwich is both your wall and your insulation in a single piece, and it is far stronger than a hollow framed wall stuffed with batting. A panel cabin comes as a set of these big slabs, cut at the factory for your windows and doors, numbered to a plan. You set them on a base and screw them together, and the walls are up and insulated in the same motion. A small panel cabin shell goes up in a weekend with 3 or 4 people and a screw gun. It is warm in a way a thin-walled cabin never will be, because the insulation is built into the bones. Expect $10,000 to $30,000 for a kit, depending on the size. You are buying the wall and the warmth at once. Number 8. The post-frame cabin. Farmers have built this way for 100 years and called it the pole barn. You set a row of stout posts into the ground or onto brackets. You tie them together with beams, and that frame carries everything. The walls hang on the frame like a coat on a peg. They hold up nothing. That is the trick of it. Because the posts do the work, you need far fewer pieces and they go up fast. A small post frame cabin frame can be stood in a weekend, and a kit comes with the posts, the trusses, and the metal cut to length. It is forgiving on uneven ground because you set each post to the height you need. A post-frame cabin kit runs from around $10,000 on up. It is the way the barn down the road was built, shrunk down to a home. Number 9. The container cabin. A steel shipping container is already a building. It was made to be stacked 9 high on a heaving ship and dropped on a truck without spilling what is inside. The structure is finished the day it arrives. You are not assembling walls. You are placing a steel box on a few blocks or piers, and the heavy work is done by the truck that brings it. Now I will be honest with you, as I always am. Cutting windows and doors and finishing the inside is more than a weekend. But the setting of it, the part that makes it a shelter you can stand in, is a single afternoon with a crane truck. A used container runs $2,000 to $5,000, and a company that converts one into a finished cabin will charge $15,000 to $40,000. It is mortgage-free because you can pay for the box itself with what some folks put down on a car. Number 10. The tiny house on wheels. This one bends the rules on purpose, and that is the whole point of it. It is a small house built on a trailer frame with wheels and a hitch, so that in the eyes of the law it is not a house at all. It is a trailer, and a trailer does not need the permits, the foundation, or the minimum size that a house demands. You do not build it in a weekend. You buy it built, or you tow your own home to your land in an afternoon. There is no assembly, only arrival. A finished tiny house on wheels runs from around $30,000 for a simple one to far more for a fancy one. But here is the part that matters. No bank holds a 30-year note on it, and many are bought outright or paid off in a few short years. You own your roof, and your roof can move. Number 11. The bunkie. In the North Country, they have a word for the little extra cabin out back where the children or the guests sleep. They call it a bunkie, and the bunkie has become the easiest kit of all, the flat-pack cabin, the cabin in a box. It arrives as a stack of numbered panels, walls and roof and floor, with the hardware in a bag and the instructions on top. 2 people and a drill stand it up in a day, sometimes an afternoon. It is small on purpose, a single room, and that is its freedom, because in most places a building under a certain size needs no permit at all. A flat-pack bunkie runs from about $3,000 to $10,000. It is the cheapest, fastest way I know to put a dry, lockable room on a piece of land. Number 12. The timber frame bent. This is the old, honest way made into a kit. A timber frame is built from heavy beams joined with wooden pegs, no steel, the way the great barns were raised. The frame is cut into sections called bents, a bent being one full cross-section of the building, like one rib of a great animal. The shop cuts every joint to fit before it ever reaches you. On the day, you lay a bent flat on the deck, peg it together on the ground, and then a crew tips it up standing, the same motion as a barn raising, only smaller. A weekend raises the frame of a small one. This is not the cheapest on the list, because the wood is heavy and good, $15,000 to $40,000 for a kit, but it is the one your grandchildren will still be living in. Pegged oak does not care what year it is. Number 13. The bolt-together steel cabin. For a man who wants no rot, no termites, and no fire to fear, there is the light steel cabin kit. Every piece is a steel stud or a steel rib, punched at the factory with the holes already in the right place, and numbered. You do not measure and you do not cut. You match the numbers and you drive the bolts. Because the holes are pre-punched, the frame goes together like a great toy, square and true, faster than wood and with no sawdust. A small steel cabin frame can be bolted up over a weekend by people who have never built a thing. The steel is light enough to carry by hand but strong enough to laugh at a storm. A kit runs from around $12,000 on up. It will be standing, straight and rust-free, long after the men who raised it are gone. Number 14. The pod. Last on the list is the smallest leap of faith, because it barely needs you at all. A camping pod or a molded cabin pod comes as a few large curved shells, sometimes only 2 halves, that bolt together into a snug, weatherproof room. The curve sheds rain and wind on its own, and the surface needs no paint and no stain. Two people join the shells and seal the seam in an afternoon. It is small, a sleeping room or a tiny studio, and it is meant to be. Prices run from a few $1,000s for a bare pod to $15,000 for a finished one with a window and a door and a bit of insulation. It is the closest thing there is to a house that simply unfolds. So there are your 14. And if you already own a piece of land, even a corner of a lot, you are thinking the right thoughts, because every one of these can sit on ground you already hold and turn it into a place to live for cash. But I promised you a rule, the one the banks and the code men do not want you to understand. Here it is. For most of human history, a house was whatever you could build with your own hands and your own money. Small was fine, plain was fine. Then in the years after the wars, two things happened together and they changed everything. The government and the banks built the long mortgage, the 30-year loan, and sold the country on the idea that a home was something you borrowed for, not something you built. And the towns wrote a new kind of rule into their codes, a minimum size. A house, they said, must be 1,000 square feet, 1,200, sometimes more. Anything smaller was not a house and could not be lived in. Think about what that rule does. It makes the cheap, small, paid-for cabin illegal in the very places people most need one. It forces you to build big, and to build big you must borrow, and to borrow you must go to the bank, and the bank collects for 30 years. The minimum size rule and the 30-year mortgage are two hands of the same body. One makes the small house against the law. The other waits to lend you the money for the big one. And here is the document I saved for last. It was not until 2018, in our own lifetimes, that the people who write the model building code for this country finally added a section, an appendix, that simply admitted a house smaller than 400 square feet is a house, and told the inspectors how to approve one. 2018. For decades before that, a paid-for, well-built little cabin had no place in the rulebook at all. It was not that no one could build small. It was that someone had decided you should not. Now let me be honest with you the whole way, the way I would want a man to be honest with me. When I say a weekend, I mean the shell, the structure, the thing that turns wind and rain. I do not mean a finished home with hot water running and a furnace humming. The walls go up in a weekend. The living takes longer. Every one of these needs something under it, a level pad, piers, a slab, or a frame, and that base wants doing first. The land is not free, and good land is the real cost in all of this. Off-grid water and power and heat are their own jobs and their own money. And the permits. Hear me on the permits. In many places, these are perfectly legal and getting more legal every year. In others, the minimum size rule I just told you about still stands, and you cannot simply set a cabin down and move in. You must ask first. You must know your own county. None of that changes the thing that matters. A structure you can pay for in cash is a structure no bank can ever take from you. That is the whole prize. So here is what I want you to see. You were taught that a home must take 30 years and a banker's signature. It does not. That was a story, and it was sold to you because there was money in the telling. The Amish never bought it. The mountain people never bought it. And now you have 14 ways not to buy it either. If you are the kind of person who believes that real knowledge has been quietly pushed aside to protect someone else's profit, you already know what to do. Now tell me in the comments. Tell me your state and whether a small cabin is even legal where you live, because I want to map this out county by county with you. And tell me your monthly house payment if you are still making one. I read every single one. Subscribe and stay close, because next time I am going to show you how the Amish heat a home like one of these through a hard winter with no furnace, no propane, and no electric bill, using a thing most folks throw away. They tried to make that one disappear too. And remember, the people who built this country with their hands knew things we are only just starting to remember.